Hi, I'm Cheryl, and today's card is a Halloween card, and it's triple spooky because we have 3 scary characters from the Boo to You stamp set from Stampin' Up. And over here, I don't know if you can see it, it's printed pretty small. It says ghosts and goblins, spooks galore, scary werewolves at your door. Jack-o'-lanterns shining bright, wishing you a haunting night. And happy Halloween. Now, I got this font. This is a really cool font. I got that online, and it's called a charming font, and it's from 1001freefonts.com. So I have the center section already printed out here. And you can just download that and install it, and then it's in your Word. I don't know what is the program or whatever. It'll be in Word as one of your fonts you can use to print. Now be careful when you go to this website because you can get lost there. There are so many cool fonts out there. But this is a charming font. And if you do a search on that, then that will come right up and you can download it and get out of there before you've wasted hours just roaming around that site. So, and this is a real internet card. The background I'm using on the card here, that came from the website. It's farfarhill .blogspot, I believe, .com. Yeah, well, I'll put that down in the description or over on my blog. Maybe I'll just make a link directly to the paper pack this comes out of, and it's all Halloween bats. And I printed this on the Mango Melody paper. That's cardstock from Stampin' Up. Then we'll need some white cardstock for our little characters here. And our card base will be basic black cardstock. It's not very thick, but it will be putting layers on, so that'll sturdy our card up. I've cut this little decorative bit here. That's from the die set. It's Ornate Frames dies, and you can get that as a bundle with the Spooktacular Bash set here. And it's got a lot of nice little borders and things on it. So that's a good all-round, you can use that any time of year set. And let's see, let me grab the dies. So this is the die that I used to cut this out. And then I'll be using this die to cut out my little sentiment for the front. And just like that, and I'll die cut that out. And just stick those in there. And we're going to need another piece of basic black for our little frame here. And I don't have that out, but that's okay. I'll get it. When we're ready for that part, I'll have it. So, let's see, what else do we need? I'm going to be using Tombow glue. I'll be using that a lot on this card. I have the EK Tools. This is their 3/4 inch punch, circle punch. I'll be using that. We're going to use the Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad, and we definitely want to use this. Don't use another black unless you know that it's safe to use with alcohol markers, because I have a whole pile of markers here that I used for to color the little guys in. And I think that, oh, well, nope, that's not all we need. One more thing we need is our is our Stamparatus. And I'll show you how I got all these guys lined up real nice. You'll notice there's a piece of tape there. That's my secret weapon. So let's stamp them first. Get those stamped. So I'll bring in my piece of Whisper White. I have a piece that's a thick Whisper White. You don't need the thick Whisper White. I just happen to have it as a scrap piece that will work very well for this. So I'm going to use that. Now because these are the rubber cling stamps, I don't need this black mat. I do have a thin piece of just craft foam in here. And I find that I get a nicer impression if I have that in there rather than just the hard surface. And yeah, I have this other thing tucked inside here. Someday we might actually use that for a card. Okay, so I put my piece of cardstock in here. And let's see. The first one we're doing is the werewolf. Now I need to put that like that. I need to put that like that. I'll put my little magnet on there just to keep it in place. And these two I have already lined up. Okay, let's get that good press. Hold that down for about 3 seconds so the ink has time to transfer. Let's see how that looks. But I think I want him a little bit darker, so I'm going to do this again. Might be time to re-ink my Tuxedo black ink pad. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's much better. So now it's time to do this little guy. Like I said, I already have it figured out where I want these little critters. Ink him up real well. I'm going to move my magnet. I'll put that down here. And 1, 2, 3. And yeah, I think I'll give him another go too. One, two, three. And now I'll show you the magic part. I need to turn my paper. Turn my paper around. Okay, so there's my monster. I'm going to be putting the zombie on his head. So this is what you're gonna do. Okay, I'm going to take this, put it over, and right at the top of his head there, I'm going to have a little bit of his hair showing. I'm going to put my piece of tape. Let me bring that up here so you can see that better. See, there's his hair right there showing. And I'll take my zombie and I'll kind of guess where I want him to be. And right about there maybe looks alright. It's kind of hard to tell because they're the rubber stamps. I don't put the backs on them because I never get them lined up right. So it's really not helpful for me. Okay. So now my zombie is on the plate and I can look here and I can see where my tape is. I can see that his foot is in the right place. And he looks like he's standing up and down pretty straight here. So I can go ahead and stamp him now. And that's how I lined all these little critters up. gotta do him one more time too. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to get my re-inker out. It's always a good idea when you get an ink pad, if you can get a re-inker, get it at the same time you get your ink pad. And then you'll always be able to refill it. Because it's no fun to be in the middle of a project and run out of ink. Okay, so we have all of our guys stamped here. I'm going to close this up. And we can color these in. Now I'm going to bring my camera down closer so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So I'll stop my camera and bring it in, and then we'll continue on with the coloring. Okay, so I zoomed in a bit. I hope I remembered to move my paper so you can see each one of these characters as I'm working on them. If you have your own way of coloring or your own things you want to use, maybe you prefer pencils or just regular markers, or you could do this on watercolor paper, maybe use watercolors or whatever, then you could always just kind of skip over this piece. I'm starting out with my light smoky slate marker, and any place that I see that I think there's going to be a little shadow, I'm just going to put a little bit of that smoky slate. All around his head there. Oh, down here on his feet, don't forget those. And of course he's going to need some ground to stand on, so let me just quick put in some ground here. And some of this will probably get trimmed off, but that's okay. Okay, now the monster kind of tells you where to put the shadowing there. I'm got a little shadow on his legs, a little bit here under his arm, down the bottom of his horns. I liked putting a little bit of that there, and let's see, put a little bit under his eyes and above his eyes here, a little between his eyes, so they're set back a little bit. You know what? Let's do the same thing here with the werewolf. So that'll put his eyes back in their sockets a little bit. And we'll go up here to the zombie. And zombies are they're dead, so I'm going to use a little bit more of the gray on him. There, and just on the bottom of his hands. Put a little shadow there where his top meets his pants and where that leg covers that. Just anywhere you think there's a little shadowing. I'm going to put a little bit on his face here too. Got to do that hand also. Okay, so maybe in his ear a little bit. Okay, so that's good. Let's see, let's do the zombie's skin while I have him here. And I found that the light pink pirouette makes a pretty good skin color. So I'm going to use that for the zombie. Just go all over where we just went with the gray markers. And don't worry about blending it. You don't need to scrub at it or anything. The markers will do their own thing. Maybe not quite so much on this paper because it's just plain cardstock. Marker paper does make a difference if you're wanting to blend, but you can see already it has started to blend all on its own. Okay, so don't be scrubbing at it. And you know what? I want I'm going to bring back the smoky slate because I want just on his, just a little swipe there on his eyeballs or whatever they're supposed to be. I guess they're eyeballs. Okay, so we can put that aside. And let's do his shirt and his pants. Let's see. I use the Granny Apple Green, light and dark, for his shirt. I'm going to start with the dark. And wherever we had, is that what I used? Yeah, I guess it is. Wherever we had the shadows, we're going to put a little, that's where we're going to put it on his shirt here. And now I'm going to switch to the light. And I'm using the paintbrush tip for all of these. There we go. Alright. And again, don't scrub at it. You don't need to. It'll blend on its own. Oh, what did I do here? I think I made his pants pink pirouette and missed his leg. That's alright, because we're going to use the light and dark Night of Navy markers for that. I've been taking some Copic classes with an online Copic classes with a woman named Amy Schulke. And if you want to up your marker game, I definitely recommend her. Or your marker and pencil. She uses both the Copic markers and the Prismacolor pencils in her classes. Okay, so I used the dark Night of Navy, just like the Granny Apple Green, anywhere I thought there was a shadow. I had that gray down, and then I went over the whole thing with the light Night of Navy. That's what I was doing there while I was chatting about this other website. Okay, now his hair. Let's see, what did I use for his hair? Perhaps I used the bronze. I'm going to just check that up here. And I did. I used the bronze. And what's this one? Bronze and ivory. So just around, just in some sections here, I used the bronze. There's not a whole lot of space here to work, so we don't need to get too crazy with the details. There's a time and a place for realistic coloring, and this is obviously not it. Okay, so we've got onto our monster. So, our monster's eyes. Let's see, I did those. I believe I did them in the dark pumpkin. Dark pumpkin pie. Let me check that up here. Now, maybe the light pumpkin pie. It was a while since I colored that image, and yep, it's the light pumpkin pie. So I just color that whole eye in there. And I'm going to color his spots in with that pumpkin too. I like that pumpkin on his horns. And then for a really scary look, we're going to use some Poppy Parade, dark Poppy Parade on his eyes here. Give him kind of a bloodshot, blood-filled look. And we'll use that also in his mouth. The inside of his mouth, avoiding his teeth. Oh, and I see I didn't do his toenails. I'm using the light smoky slate for that. Gotta do his toenails. And then I'm going to add some of the smoky slate here in his mouth too, because that's just a little bit too red for me. And then his body then is, this is the light and dark Call Me Clover green. So we'll start with the dark. And all this places we colored with the gray. We're going to go in there with that. I'm going to put a little bit on his knees here where it has these lines saying we need a little something something there. There and here. Up to under around his horns. Or his one horn anyway. I'll give him a little of the dark green on the hair. On the top of his head. And then under his eyes. And let's see, we put a little gray here on his around his eyebrows, so let's do that with the Call Me Clover too. Okay, and then we'll switch to the light. I get his arms. I know I went all silent there, huh? Obviously I can't color in monsters and talk at the same time. And down here. Get that nice and inky. So our magic blending happens. Okay. And our little monster's done. And we'll move this up and work on the werewolf. And so on the werewolf, let's see, I've used light rich raspberry on his pants. Oh, and I used the light and dark pumpkin on his shirt, because we all know those two colors go really well together. That was meant to be sarcastic, by the way. And I also need to bring back my ivory pen because I did his face in the ivory. So let's do his pants first. So again, just wherever we put that gray shadow, we're going to add a little bit of the dark rich raspberry. And then we'll switch to the light. And you notice I'm going a little bit slower when I use my light pens. That's so I get a good amount of ink down there so that the blending magic can happen. Let me show you the back here. You see? See where you can see that through? That's where I've used more ink. Okay, and let's do his shirt. I'll start with the dark pumpkin. And just wherever we have a little shadow. Under his lapel, maybe around his pocket a little bit there. What do you think? Down the front. Okay. You know, maybe I'll just put a little bit down here too, even though that's not in the shadow. Just have a little color difference. And now I'll switch to the light pumpkin. This is really very simple blending that we're doing here. Because like I said before, there's not a whole lot of room for details and blending. Okay, so I'm going to do his face first with the ivory marker. You see, I'm going very slow here, where I had the gray, so that it blends. And we don't have any blending going on down in that part of his face, so I don't have to go go real fast or slow, or doesn't really matter. I'm going to make his nose a dark brown with, well, a darker brown with the dark crumb cake. We're using dark and light crumb cake now. And, oh, you know what? I need a little pink for his ears. Or the ivory. I'm going to use the ivory. Let's do the inside of his ears with the ivory. And you know what? The palm of his hands, too. I'm going to do the palm of his hands with the ivory. And his fingers. Because I think that's how a werewolf would be. And then like on the bottom of his foot here, so that just where the hair is, we'll be doing it with the crumb cake. Okay, so back to the dark crumb cake. Let's see, underneath his head here on his chest, that's going to be mostly all in shadow because of his head and his jacket or shirt. And right here is a little piece of his belly. Don't want to forget that. Do a little shading here. We're going to come up into his hands, but we're not going to go all the way out to his fingers. We'll do the top of his feet, and right here where his pants meet his legs, that would be a little bit shadowed too. And let's see, the bottom of his ears. I'm trying to work so that that my hand and my marker are not in the way. And then I'm just going to do little flicks around here with the dark crumb cake, or all around his face here. And maybe just a little bit up in his hair where he has little fuzzies sticking out. And you notice I'm not going strictly on these little pieces. I'm just doing little flicks. Okay, so that's the dark crumb cake. Now we'll switch to the light crumb cake. We're almost finished. I just have to do his eyes after we finish with the light crumb cake. So any place, see, now I'm going slow. I'm not pressing any harder. I'm just going slower so that the ink has time to flow out and onto the paper. Okay. Now his eyes, I thought he'd have nice green eyes. So I just used the dark granny apple green that we used for the zombie shirt. So I just colored them in with the granny apple green. Didn't get crazy with them. Okay, so there's our characters all finished being colored. So now I'll zoom the camera back out so you can get a little wider view here, and we'll continue on with the card. Okay, so I did some trimming. I trimmed the inside piece down to 4 by 6. This piece I trimmed to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. This piece is trimmed to 2 1/8. Of course, it's not long enough, by 6 1/4. The black piece to mat this is 2 3/8 by, I'm going to use the grid on here, by 6 1/2. So let's start gluing everything together. I might as well glue this. I also die cut this piece. And I'll use my Tombow glue. Almost time to break out a new bottle of Tombow. I always keep one ahead when I start that new bottle, I'll order a new the next one. That way I always have my crafting supplies that I need. Okay, let me bring my card base in. I don't think I told you, this is a 5x7 card. So this is 10 inches by 7 and then scored and folded at 5. So let's put this on. The front. Da, 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 da. It's fun to do, don't you think? That zigzaggy bit on there. Let me just make sure I get this all lined up nice. That's why I'm using the Tombow, by the way, because that gives me a little bit of time to line things up. Okay, so I've got that done. Let me put this piece on the inside. And zigzag. And we'll get that centered. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And before we glue this piece onto our mat, we're going to give the corners a little decorative look. And I'm going to take my circle punch, and you have to look at it from the back. Okay, and I'm just gonna look in there, and I'm just estimating. Well, my friends, my battery just died on my camera. So I left off, I was going to make a little decorative corner on here, and just slide that in the hole punch. And I just estimate about a quarter of an inch on each side here. You see? If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you could always mark it, put just like a little tick mark in pencil. Quarter inch in. And one more. Okay. And now we can glue this on. Get that all lined up real nice. We have just a little border on each edge. And then that's going to go on our card front. Just about right here. We want about 3/8, quarter inch 3/8 showing over here. We want just a little bit showing of our bat design paper showing at the top and the bottom. So anywhere along the line here, you know, if you wanted to pop this up, you could do that too. I'm just keeping it simple, using the KISS method. Keep it simple, sweetie. There we go. So that's on. And you see our card has gotten very sturdy. There's my Bonnie. Oh, I didn't have the craft room door closed all the way. My Bonnie, she's a bad one. She's the tiniest little black cat you ever wanted to see. Here she comes through again. And I'm going to put this on. I'm not going to center it top and bottom. I'm going to put it on just a little bit to the bottom. Let's see. But I'll center it side to side within these the two black borders here. And there we go. Our card is finished. Now, if there are any Stampin' Up! Products you'd like to purchase, that would be wonderful if you used me as your demonstrator. You can go to either my Facebook page or my blog, and there's a shop button. If you click on that, it'll take you to the Stampin' Up website, and it should automatically make me your demonstrator. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those down below. I do get back to you. I try to get back as quickly as possible. I have to apologize because back in September, my laptop battery died, and I had a couple days that I couldn't get online unless I had it plugged in, and well, it was just a mess. It was just a mess. It's not been a good month. I turned 63 this month, so that's not fun. But that's the least of it. Then we had the hurricane. We had Hurricane Dorian hanging around. Then my laptop battery died. I'm thinking my camera battery might be getting ready to go too, since it's been cutting out on me. And I got news from my son that he had a blockage in one of the main arteries of his heart. And he's very young for that. But that had me scared and upset. So it's not been a good month. September's not been my month this year. Anyway, good thing I have a craft room that I can just escape to, huh? So anyway, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Let's see, what else do I say at the end of these videos? Well, I do say take care, stay safe, and happy stamping.